later.
Hey everyone, got everyone here in person, which is fantastic. It's great to see the room filled. It's good to see, even though you know, it's hard to get people to events, if it's the right event, people come. So it's good. And then we've got people remotely as well. So the whole hybrid setup. Firstly, thanks to Microsoft and Phil for hosting us here. Susanna from Ingram Micro, who's one of our distributors, she helped organise this event today, and Julian in my marketing team, thank you. But yeah, so today we're going to have a opportune chat about Microsoft's Copilot product and also AI, and we're going to kind of take a spin on it around security. So obviously everyone's heard about what's happening in the market at the moment. Microsoft did some great announcements a few weeks ago about pricing and all those sorts of things. Not quite there yet. I won't steal your thunder, but Phil's going to fill us in on what the roadmap looks like, what the product's about. And yeah, so I've known Phil for 20 odd years. Phil was what we call the grandfather of SPLA. So there's this Microsoft licensing. Phil was part of it in the early days with Microsoft, and I've known Phil for a long time. And yeah, it's great to have you here with us today, and I'm going to hand over.
Oh, really? Straight away? How to put us on the spot, that's right. Cool. All right, let's get into it. My screen comes up. Awesome. I put closed captions on the bottom in case anybody's interested in following along remotely. Of course, that is a little feature which is AI, isn't it? Speech to text. So it's sitting in the product. I don't know if many of you use that yourselves today. I make extensive use of that feature because part of my personal life is to represent or to make the world safer for children. I work with the Australian Federal Police on a program called, you know, where we go to schools and industry and we talk about what children are doing online, the concerns that are there. And often when I go to various schools, English is not the first language of the parent body. So turning on something where I can put it in one of the many Indian languages or Mandarin or to Italian, I've even done into some Somalian to a particular group in Adelaide. And it just helps them understand what's being said because my English is very quick and that seems to keep up pretty well, doesn't it? Cool. Well, thank you very much to your team for having me along. And I will start with an extra note of thanks. You know what I'm going to talk about. You guys were featured in our big partner event. Now, I know you're all customers of these wonderful people, but we have a massive partner event each year. And it was wonderful that these guys were brought out and given the opportunity to speak specifically about their skills in security and what they built as a capability to a vast array of partners, over 30,000 partners live. And they all heard about these wonderful skills directly from the man at the back. Let everybody attack. It's the man Dante. So you did a good job. All right. So that's kind of where we're going to get to. It's not drinks at the firehouse. I didn't update that. It's actually really easy. It's drinks downstairs at Bar Loom. So super, super easy. So you can ignore that. I'm going to talk briefly about AI in the workplace. Some of you may have had Microsoft people. Jane Mackerel, heard from Jane. Was that a nod? Susanna's heard from Jane. I'm going to try and be Jane today. All right. That's Jane down the bottom left. She has been out in the Australian media quite a lot talking about AI in the marketplace. And you can see from the various articles across the Australian media, the numbers of times that AI has been referenced. I don't have to remind you of that. This gentleman, our fearless leader, is very much committed to the idea of AI and the concept that it's going to remove that drudgery in their lives, those mundane processes that you and your staff have in their lives. Because even with all this glorious Microsoft technology that I've been associated with for more than 32 years of my Microsoft life, I used to actually use Multiplan on PCs and educate people to use Multiplan on DOS in the 80s. It's amazing how it is so productive, but it still can become quite a drudgery using that. So the idea here is we went out to the market in this process called the Work Trend Index. You can see the numbers, and maybe some of you are part of this 31,000 people. Yes. Do you remember getting interviewed? You do. Fantastic. So it's not hard to get across our industry, I guess, and find somebody who's been part of this sort of research. And so 31 countries, so Australia and New Zealand, and it was very much around their usage of Microsoft 365 and the value of LinkedIn in doing that. This is some of the findings, some of the key findings, 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to read all that. You can read it quicker than I can probably say it. Innovation is lacking, even though we've got all this cool technology. New skilling, and you were talking about earlier to me about some of the programs you're going to introduce, and I won't steal your thunder, but you've got some programs coming in and around how AI can help your businesses be innovative with the support from Fuse. And 46% worried about AI replace their jobs. But there's another data point that I'll come up with later about management's perspective, which is quite different to that. So that's the employee's concern that they're going to lose their job. But when we looked at the managers, it's quite a different perspective on that job replacement aspect. So this is the weight that we got from, thank you, your input, the suggestion from your input and those other 30,999 people suggested this is where we're spending our lives today when using the Microsoft technology. And it's considered it as a digital debt. It's costing us that innovation, the time we spend in meetings that are unproductive, chats that are unproductive, using Excel unproductively, using PowerPoint not as efficiently as what possibly could be achieved. Yes, it's better than what it was 30 years ago when those products first came out, but it still could be better. And that's what we've really found through this research. So there's that lack of innovation. I just wanted to identify that innovation, and one of the mantras that you'll hear from Microsoft is that AI fuels innovation, right? I will add something that's not in the slides that I believe AI will actually fuel compliance. And ponder on that a moment. If I'm sitting in a business and I've got this cool technology where I can ask it anything, you could have, without compliance, you could have somebody sitting on reception tell me the salaries of all the senior management. So if you haven't got the guardrails and the compliance and the data classification in place, you've suddenly got staff asking questions across your secure data. Yeah, nobody else in the world will see it. Your business will see it, but you've got staff in the organisation potentially seeing information they're not supposed to see. Is there another seat at the back? Maybe we can move a chair at there. Or the one at the front. Yeah, grab that one. That's just Phil embellishing this material in his own way. And I think it lands with you, the idea that suddenly I've got all this information in my organisation unclassified, that anybody can find anything. I guess, you know that we're into trust. Obstacles to productivity. I've referenced some of those already. Inefficient meetings, too many meetings. To counter that point, I was just sharing with Chung earlier that I was in, sharing that I was in another meeting and I couldn't make it. And even now with Teams Premium, it recapped the meeting for me. I could have sat trying to listen to meetings at the same time. I've got 2 ears and I sometimes do that. I sometimes multitask and I'll listen to 2. I've actually now said, no, I'll listen to 1 and focus and then use the recap function. And in about a page, it summarised for me a really deep call between Telstra and Microsoft about AI and health into that page. So yeah, I don't have to attend too many meetings now. I can let this thing called Teams Premium, which is a precursor to the Copilot technology that is on everybody's mind, and the question is when. Not easy to find information. Yeah, so worried about replacing their jobs. Australians would delegate as much work as possible to AI to lessen their workloads. So there's this unexpected AI employee alliance emerging that workers say that they're going to lose their jobs, but at the same time they're saying, well, I want to use this AI stuff to do my job. So what is your job if it's not doing your job in the world of AI? So they're going to delegate it to these AI models, but they're worried about losing it. This is the slide I wanted to get to because of the research, to me, it was the most telling. It was the one that showed that the leaders who were sampled in this survey said, no, I'm not going to sack my people. In the main, yes, there's a number there, 16% that are going to reduce their headcount. I don't know what your thoughts are. You don't have to open up about it right now. But I like the left-hand side of this, as to where the managers wanted to almost double, want to increase the productivity of their staff. They want to get more out of them. by using this sort of technology. So that's cool that your job's safe. I don't know how that applies to the Screenwriters Guild in America, but it's actually a really interesting one that's playing out at the moment. And if you know me well enough, you know I love history, and it's a similar sort of things that happen in the car manufacturing world. It happened in the steam engine world. It happened with the introduction of electricity. There were people going on strikes because they're worried about their jobs, because we're moving from coal to electricity. We're moving from textile mill machines, from the spinning jennies to these new technologies. We're going to see these disruptions because this, to me, is as point of time as the internet emerging or the browser emerging. In the truest sense, the internet existed before the browser, but the browser was a bombshell on us. Somebody shared with me the other day that word processing, the simple introduction of word processing, was a groundbreaking change in the way we moved from typing pools. And I do remember that day when I was working as a trainer, teaching people in the public service board how to use a word processor. And sorry, don't take it the wrong way, but it was very much a women's role. So again, don't take it the wrong way. But these ladies cried because suddenly the screen went off, their words they typed disappeared. Well, where they gone? They've lost them. And then I introduced them to the scroll button. And their emotion changed. And when you start, you've all used ChatGPT in some way, haven't you? Yeah, right. That same kind of emotion that, wow, that's pretty cool. It's giving me an answer that I wanted rather than 10 lines, 10 blue lines that come out of Google, where I've got to figure out between the ads and what really matters. So it will require a new aptitude. We are going to think about change management, flexibility, and the way we've had to adapt to the pandemic, that same shock and awe of the pandemic hitting us. It's the same again for your staff. They're going to have to come to terms with, wow, it's doing some work for me. I'm going to have to coach them through this. I'm going to have to train them through this. I'm going to support them through this and care for them. And then we will get to the point where they'll be able to be more productive and you'll get better returns in your business. So some thoughts and recommendations, and they're not that dissimilar to whatever you do whenever introducing technologies into a business, are they? And you've introduced things like Teams or Zooms or WebExes in the past. You've introduced database systems in the past, if you're as old as me, and you've seen the same sorts of things around organisational change. Even introducing a telephone system or the removal of handsets, to giving people a pair of these to do their calls in an office can be shocking. For the police force in Western Australia, they did it very hard. They went in there one day, they ripped out all the telephones and gave them all headsets. And the police said, no, I'm not working. Forget it, mate. Take my gun. I don't want to do this job anymore. You're going to give me a headset instead of a phone to bang down because I've got to have something to bang on the desk. That's what it was. They just needed something to bang on the desk. So they gave them a rubber mallet. And they were happy again. But that sort of change management is the sort of things you've got to consider. Security, privacy. In this case, we do have to think about that aptitude, and there's certainly some amazing new opportunities. I'm not going to dwell on today on creating your own co-pilots, if you know what I mean by that. So co-pilots is what we give you as part of Teams and Word, Excel, GitHub, security. There's a whole lot of co-pilots coming out. But there's also an opportunity, and you'll probably explore this too with this community, around what is your core business? Can we create a co-pilot that is specifically for health, for non-profits, for caring for people in homes? So what is the tool that they might use, not to create a PowerPoint presentation or condense a Teams conversation, but to enhance their lives and their job? And I'll give you a very specific example. My daughter's a lawyer. She's a partner in a London law firm. And we talked about this back in October, this idea of OpenAI and Azure OpenAI. And I said, well, there's this opportunity in Microsoft Copilot stack and you develop stuff. She went back to the team and she rings me up the day, Dad, took on your advice. We've now got a thing called co-counsel. We used it the other day. It was amazing. We were doing an M&A between a Korean company and an Italian company. Korean company sent it all in Korean. The Italian sent it all in Italian. My English team had no idea what was going on. We didn't understand local laws associated with the merger, but we shoved it into co-counsel in your Azure and OpenAI thing, and our staff just asked questions. What are the issues between Korea and Italia in terms of international law? There's the things that connect. These are the things that disconnects. Here's the terms and conditions of one party. Here's the terms and conditions of the other party. What is the points where they're compatible? What are the concerns that we've got to deal with? And if you think of a law firm where you've got to digest and read and process all that information, her team would have been up for hours trying to translate from Korean to English and Italian to English, trying to understand everything that was there, probably missing things because there are any lawyers in the room? Maybe there are. Okay, you don't want to admit it, that's fine. But it just blew me away. But that was an effort that her organisation took in partnership with a partner to implement co-counsel, which was a co-pilot to mergers and acquisitions. So definitely need to take some responsible approach in doing this. So these are some bullet points. Now, all this is available in our Work Trends Index document. You don't have to try and remember it. You can look at the slides later, which is a summation, but you can look at our Work Trends Index and all that these recommendations and about responsibility are absolutely there. And I go back to that first example I gave of a receptionist saying, oh, tell me the salaries of all the senior management in the company. So part of that, again, is you taking a responsible approach to AI. ChatGPT is awesome. Chung's going to talk about this later, but you've got to be careful when you use tools like ChatGPT versus more private environments, particularly where you're publishing documents. It's not going to steer your thunder, mate, because you're going to talk. Path forward. What are the big disruptors in productivity for your staff? Is it the meetings? Is it the creative work focused time? Think about what you need to create as those guardrails, which is who can see what data. Again, this is where AI can kick in and help you. So some of the AI technologies that we and other vendors offer to classify, auto-label, determine who is allowed and who isn't allowed, to automatically tag documents and say which groups of individuals. Still a bit of physical work there to do, saying who is the right person to see this type of document, who's the person who sees that type of document and file. Still a bit of manual work there, and then building that practice and aptitude. And I'm sure you're going to talk about how your team can help this group with that, developing the aptitude muscle. All right, here he is, he's back again. Sadia. Pretty compelling article. Question again, I like asking questions. Who's read it? It's a long one. It's so long that the first thing I did is I took that URL and I fed it into Bing Chat and said, summarize it, make it 100 words. And I read it and it was a pretty bland representation of what's going on here, those 100 words. So I invested the time, which was probably a half an hour, in reading that article. And there's some very powerful bullet points in that. And probably one I will share, and there's a lot more, is he does not like Google.
The podcast where he said we're going to make events.
Yeah.
He said that, right?
We some of the lines were, we're going to give the world a choice. That's what, unfortunate name, because it's got baggage, Bing. But Bing Chat, we want to give the headline. Some of the another line he had in there was, we're going to turn those 10 blue lines of Google to being as meaningful as Alta Vista. Now, if you remember what Alta Vista was, it was a search engine, and he wants to make that as meaningful as Alta Vista. So he's a pretty passionate bloke when it comes to this. And it's a big, tall order to get that brand name, which is a verb. But interestingly, what's the new verb on everybody's mouths? ChatGPT. And that's okay. That's okay. We'll get there because people will realise, oh, maybe it's not so secure. We're going to talk about that. We are not OpenAI. We are not ChatGPT. ChatGPT is one of the many large language models that runs on Azure, okay? And there's others that have emerged. So Llama, Da Vinci. There are others that run on Azure as well. So OpenAI and Microsoft, we formed an alliance, a partnership, back in an official partnership back in October, but we've been working with them for a couple of years before that. There's some of the elements and words that you might already understand. Text, which is the GPTs. I'll tell you now that GPT-5 is now running in Australia. So that engine now sits in our data centre in Australia East, running in our tin, running as GPT-5, so the latest version. Codex, which is where you're doing coding, so the whole GitHub Copilot. And we've already got some pretty substantial development organisations here in Australia, like Atlassian, who take advantage of that to reduce the time to code by 70%. They reduce development time by 70%. So 30% of what it used to be by turning on the Copilots to generate code in a secure and responsible way. And then DALI, which is then emerging in imaging products like Designer and other tools that we make available as Microsoft versions of that. So I just really want to emphasize this point about responsibility because we've been asked to. We are not OpenAI, all right? Microsoft is not OpenAI. We did not buy them. We have a partnership with them. We collaborate for technology and research. Azure OpenAI is not OpenAI GPT. So the Azure and OpenAI service that runs in there is a secure, guarded, protected environment. Your data is your data. Your data is not published into the world and used to create a model that other people can look at. Your data stays inside your tenant and does not leave it. OpenAI works a little differently. It's an enterprise trust model. ChatGPT is not the new Bing. Bing Chat is the new version, and Bing Chat has many of the trust elements as well. So when you do a query in Bing Chat, it stays inside your Bing Chat destination. Other people can't see it. Okay, and we apply little engines like Prometheus. Prometheus is an unfortunate name if you know the series, which is the Aliens. Scary, my pillow on that one. But yeah, so Prometheus is an engine that sits there as guardrails to ensure that it's got, I can't tell you what the specifics are. I'll give you some nuances of what it is, because one of the key elements of guardrailing is that you don't shell, or jailbreaking is you don't tell people what the rules are. But it's things like we don't want racial discrimination. We don't want gender bias. We don't want bad jokes told. So there are some of the elements of what you would expect in guardrailing and jailbreaking in terms of what a Prometheus engine does. But the other element that it brings in is what's called citations. So you want to know what the original source of that finding was. So bringing in footnotes or citations is also what a Prometheus engine does. Now I'm just going to shift it a little bit because I want to just step back. We've talked a lot about generative AI to date, but I just wanted to remind you that there's many AI elements that you've been enjoying as part of your journey with Microsoft 365 all the way back from 2013. So even then we were putting in tools like Delve, which is renamed now as Workplace Analytics, I think, is a technology which is giving you as management an ability to see how your staff are interacting and collaborating and sharing information with one another or not. And then all the other orange bits that are there are elements that have emerged in the product over the last 10 years, 9 years, to show you even what we're using at the moment, the speech to text at the bottom and live captioning in Teams and in PowerPoint has been kicking around for a while. Now, based off just that element there, we did some research. Corey, that's a bit of a repeat, so I won't dwell on it unless somebody wants to ask a question on it, but you can see it's all about trust. I forgot to unhide that slide. This is a bit of research that was done before generative AI, which really looked at how people were already deriving benefits from the AI capabilities of the products. There's some interesting data points even in that. 600 hours saved per year, 1,800K annual savings. I'll give you the link to this. And I've just done a really bad job at summarising that, and I should have used Designer to make the slide more pretty, but it's just got some data points that says there's a lot in the box today that can give benefits to your staff by activating some of those, all right? And some of those elements were where they were using also cognitive services, DAX, if you've heard of nuanced DAX, Dragon. Yep. So people using tools like that, I know Mackay Hospital uses that today, and they cut inpatient emergency admission times in half by using a speech-to-text translation with then diagnostic recommendations based on that speech-to-text out of the box. And so that was that reduction in patient no-shows and increase in and decrease in admission times. So that's quite good. Here's some of the co-pilots. I think you'd probably appreciate what a Microsoft 365 Copilot might be. Something in PowerPoint. And there's videos available if anybody watched the videos? Sometimes watch the videos. You've watched the videos. So all the videos are online. You can just go to YouTube or go to Bing Chat, say, show me the videos. I've got one embedded in this content to do with Teams. But before I get there, maybe I'll mention a couple. PowerPoint. So you've done a business proposal to a client, right? And you've written that all in Word, and it's got some diagrams and it's got some numbers in it. And suddenly you've now got to turn that into a PowerPoint presentation. So imagine the labor it is to take it from Word and turn that into a PowerPoint presentation. So imagine you're sitting in PowerPoint, you click a Copilot button and you just point it to the Word document, turn that into a PowerPoint presentation of 10 slides. It then goes and opens up the document, takes the salient points, embellishes it with some images relevant to some of the content, and you go, that's great. Now turn that into a speech of 30 minutes. It then puts the notes, the footnotes, and talking points around each slide to make that a 30. No, 30 is too long, make it 20. So it cuts that back to 20 minutes. You're sitting in a tool like Excel, you've got all this data sitting in front of you in Excel, and you just don't understand what the trending is, don't understand. Right click, tell me what the key insights are from this spreadsheet. What are the trends, three top trends? Remove anomalies, because sometimes you're looking at a spreadsheet, there's anomalies. So these are the anomalies in that spreadsheet. These are the unusual data points. Remove those anomalies. Now turn that into Power BI, turn that into a set of charts. Even simple things like, I haven't got it up there, but Windows 11, dark mode. Do you know the settings to go and put your PC into dark mode? No? Settings, display, it's all hard. Windows 11 Copilot, dark mode, goes and sets it for you. You can talk to it and say, put my PC in dark mode with the microphone, as an example. So this is some of the coolness. Dynamics 365. So we obviously use Dynamics for sales internally. And so when I'm in an email, it generates a sales opportunity into the Copilot system. Copilot Power Platform. I found Power Platform super easy to use as it was, just to be able to sign in, point to the resources I want, click, drag, connectors created, authentication. Some people want it easier. And then you say, connect my SAP system to my Oracle database and process that for records associated with customer orders. It then goes and creates the code, creates the screen, it's got the elements from both, and off you go. So this is just using Power Platform. Security Copilot, example there. Again, you come in the morning, although you probably use the Fuse guys to do your SOC. They would use it to say, okay, what are the top 3 incidents that occurred across my customer base overnight? These are the top 3 incidents. Okay, what are those 3 customers? Right, that I need to address. Go fix it. I'm taking business away from you guys. But you can use it to also go and remediate problems that are occurring inside the security landscape. GitHub is developer. So here's a little demo. I'm hoping that those online will be able to hear the audio come through. Let's hit the play button. How am I going for time, Julian?
You have 2 minutes.
Good.
All right. You can go a bit longer.
All right. I don't have audio. I turned my audio off, didn't I?
After the meeting ends, Copilot will summarize what you missed. You'll get a notification in Teams when the recap is ready. This recap will highlight content that was shared, summarize notes, and any action items for you or others whose names were mentioned. You see that one of your customers was discussed, and you want to learn more. You can ask Copilot clarifying questions, and it provides a detailed response. It can tell you why a certain decision was made, and gives you helpful context. You can even ask Copilot what other solutions were considered. And it provides citations from the transcript, so you can see where Copilot drew these conclusions. It's a huge time saver. So that was pretty cool. But the real magic of Copilot happens during a live meeting. Let's say you're in a meeting with your team. You
Feedback. Should it the other way?
Can I tell you when meetings are inefficient?
Well, actually, there's one that you could use today. Have you used Presenter Coach in PowerPoint?
No.
You haven't used that one? So my role, obviously, I have to do a lot of presentations, and Presenter Coach will give me feedback when you're in a team session to tell me that you're not paying attention. So it will show me in a graphic heat that you've slipped to do your email, or you're going and looking up, where you're going out for dinner. And I know that I've lost your attention. So Presenter Coach is in there already to let you know that you audience. Now, I can look around a room and tell whether I've got the attention, and you're doing pretty well so far. But yeah, you don't know what the people on the other end are. I put Presenter Coach on. Might have been able to say, I've lost those people. They're already disengaged and doing their email. Okay. So that's something you didn't know about Presenter Coach. Yeah. That's a good one. I just found that this morning and slipped it in at the last minute, but I thought it was funny. It is good, isn't it? That says a lot about generative AI and also summative AI. So that the two dimensions are quite fascinating, that particular piece I threw in. This is another piece that was recently commissioned by the Tech Council of Australia in partnership with Microsoft. And it does talk about the massive opportunity that is presented by increasing productivity at a slow pace, at a medium pace, and a fast-paced adoption, improving quality of work, opportunities for jobs, and business growth creation. So that increasing productivity number, I wanted to include that because I know you're probably all going, boy, $30 US, $40 Australian is going to be pretty expensive. And so I don't know this for a fact. I'm making this up as I go along. And I got to be careful because you're a bunch of customers who'll probably hold me task on it. But you're probably going, how can I justify spending $40, $45 per employee? I don't know for sure, but I think Microsoft's probably going to come back to you and say, well, look at that increase in productivity. If you apply that to your staff, surely $400, $500 a year isn't much to pay.
Some law firms here, accounting firms.
They'll just go,
10 billable minutes, right?
yeah,
That's all
it's
the
easy.
productivity you need to do. It's pretty straightforward, I think, for most businesses in the professional services space.
Thank you. Quickly finish off on security. And I know that the Fuse guys are great at this, but I'm very passionate on both AI and security. We're doing all we can to help you. We are very much, as Microsoft, on the forefront. I'd commend you to think about that piece of research or paper that we do each year called the Digital Defence Report. It's long, 110 pages, but it does talk about how we track nation-state actors, about 40 different countries at the moment, and 140 different cybercrime organisations that we work in partnership with the AFP and the FBI and Interpol and all those sorts of organisations. That's the sort of, and this is all AI powered. And that's part of including it here is it's AI powered security. We're using AI, we're dealing with polymorphic viruses, those that get on your computer and they shift the signatures around. Those sorts of capabilities we support, and we're doing that sort of work on your behalf. I know the team at Fuse has probably told you the left to the right, the east and west of this already. I just want to make sure you're getting all the value you can out of Microsoft. I sometimes do occasionally meet your customers and I ask them, what have you got? And they go, oh, we got E3. Oh, I got E5. Oh, do you use PIM? What's PIM? Oh, privileged identity management. Oh, we've been wondering how we could do that. Sure that only people get on and off at certain times. Are you using Intune for doing device management? No, we haven't thought about that. We've been using AirWatch or Mobile Iron for doing that. Oh, well, you've already bought a really good product for doing application device management. Retention policies. What? Everything that I have can be backed up for up to 99 years? Yeah. And it's sitting there in a repository, even though the staff left 3 years ago and they sent an email 5 years ago, and I can get it out? Yes. So why are you backing it up when it's there for you to use if you turn on retention policies? Sorry, I won't go through the full list, but I just want to make sure you're getting all the value you possibly can with respect to very sophisticated layers of attack today, and there's a lot in the box that you've got. So I just ask you to consider the value. We do have a paper, which is a best practices paper that you may want to enjoy reading. I've created a short link there, just SRW. So that white paper, and again, you're working with an organisation that knows security very, very well, and I'm sure they're well aware of being able to introduce the extremes of what PIM can do, or simple, humble MFA, multi-factor authentication. I don't want to hear again about organisations that don't have MFA. I have to deal with yesterday yet another case of a small business, not a big business, small business getting hit with a infestation, not a ransomware, but an exploitation, where they basically, the poor little customer, they have Azure, they didn't have multi-factor authentication. Somebody got in there and started doing crypto mining. They didn't ransomware them. They just crypto mined. They spun up a whole bunch of VMs, ran up a whole lot of cost against that small business, simply because they had no guards, nothing more than passwords to protect the environment. MFA would have absolutely have stopped that attack at its tracks. And yeah, I missed a really good keynote because I'm dealing with another small business and they hadn't had multi-factor. All right, so there's a lot to this box. You might be surprised, Microsoft is actually the biggest security company on the planet now, $20 billion. Our business in security is bigger than Windows. More revenue, very much customers for your spend. But and we now have 1 million organisations, and it's gone from 500,000 a year ago, 1 million organisations in the world who have a Microsoft security first policy. So they start there and then they go, right, let's fill in the gaps after that, across all those dimensions, including the Coca-Colas of the world, the Lions of the world. So big and small have taken that approach to save them, do more with less is the fundamentals there. I'm not going to play that video, the Security Copilot one. You can watch that on YouTube at your leisure. And I'll close off, second last slide, backfill, is that one. It's pretty cool because I've been here for 32 years. This is recorded, but I don't mind going on record and saying we were crap at security in 2000. We were crap. Do you remember it? Windows XP? And we put that security sentinel thing, or what was it called? Essentials in, Windows Essentials. Oh my goodness, that was a disaster. And ended up having to shut the factory for 6 months. We shut down Windows development. We shut down all development for 6 months. As we went, gee, that was rubbish. And we found all these holes in the product. So 6 months, everything was shut until everybody was told, right, you're going to have to build security first into the products. Did we do a great job? No, we didn't even do a good job. We did an average job. But over the time, it's got better. And what really hit us was about 2006. We tried to work with that maze of colours on the left-hand side of that green dot, and we just weren't getting anywhere. It just wasn't working. Customers were just getting frustrated through the complexity of having to integrate this and that and this and that, trying to make all the work. And some good products in there in point areas, you know, Palo Alto's, some good products in there. But in the maze, in the main, it was just a mess for you guys to put together. So we just do it all now. Endpoints, email protection, BEC, SIEM/SOAR, the whole lot in the one box, and you bought a lot of that when you bought an E5 SKU or an E3 SKU.
So business premium now.
Even BP. Well, BP actually has the same Defender technology which you get in the enterprise box, because we got so much pressure from small businesses saying, well, why do the big guys get the security, but we're the ones getting attacked as well? So I said, okay, we'll give you the same Defender XDR technology in the box for the business premium price. You miss out on some of the mailbox sizes and SharePoint sizes and team sizes. But yeah, absolutely. And maybe as a consequence of doing that, John, we've gone to our first in market share for XDR at 108% growth. And the other ones are slipping behind very quickly. So again, thanks to you as a partner and thanks to the customer base for doing that. So in closing, for handover, the high level, will AI fix work was kind of the title at the beginning. It has the potential to, but we still do need to do that change management. We still need to do that data classification. We could make a mess of work if we don't do some of those early steps. It can make a real mess. So I've given the links there on that final slide also to the small business research and the generative AI opportunity for the Tech Council. And then the do more with less is that other link that I shared earlier. And with that, I say thank you. Do you want that slide back up again?
So I'm sure there's a lot of questions for you, Phil. We'll do our slide quickly and then we'll kind of do some questions at the end. You know, I, like everyone else in the world, will know when I can get my hands on it, but we'll quickly jump onto ours.
It's going to cost you a glass of red wine.
But yeah, look, we have been riding this wave like everyone else has. And one of the things that we're seeing right now, so Julian's going to bring up our slide decks. It's more around the security side of things. And, you know, I think, you know, when I look at what our clients are doing and what industries they're in, you know, there's a lot to do. So everyone in the room knows who we are. If you don't, yeah, happy to chat to you afterwards. But basically, AI, ChatGPT in particular, has some risks. And, you know, I don't know if anyone's seen some of the case studies, but Samsung, for instance, their marketing team decided to use ChatGPT and put a whole heap of product information about new products coming out. Guess what? That information was sucked into the OpenAI beast, and then people are like, oh my God, Samsung are releasing all these new products because all the information was
Only
uploaded.
that, some engineers uploaded codes.
That's right, yes.
From Samsung.
Yeah, from Samsung. You know, bugs because of code are leaked on there. You know, there's a reason why it's called OpenAI. It is an open system. They do not put any of the guardrails that you need on it. So, you know, our policy to our staff internally is use it for general information. Do not upload any sensitive data, client data. If you're going to do something that you really need help with, anonymize, you know, do as much as you can. But our view is, you know, it is the Wild West at the moment, and be aware of it when you're using it. And it's really important to kind of re-emphasize that within our client base. So, you know, where's the risk? You know, personalization and user data. That's what's happening. Sensitive data handling, quality and accuracy. You know, for those that don't know, you know, it hallucinates. If it doesn't have the answer, it'll make up an answer. So if you want accurate information, always check what you put into there and make sure that, you know, you have the lens of, you know, this is a good estimation, doesn't make sense, doesn't smell right. You know, it is not something that I would, you know, submit a research paper on. So I think there was a case in America where a lawyer basically used this to summarize cases, and it made up a whole bunch of other cases that didn't exist. So be aware. And obviously data breaches is super important. So this is where kind of the Microsoft stuff becomes important. So, you know, as we start rolling this out, clients, you know, I've already got clients saying to me, oh, I don't want to use that Copilot stuff. It's not secure. I've heard all the stories. Well, no, if you kind of read the detail within how Microsoft do it, your data is your data. You're searching within your data. You're using generative AI within your data. But then it comes to Phil's point of, well, what's in your data and what can staff access? So, you know, we have some clients that still use a single SharePoint repository for everything. Well, that, for instance, becomes a problem because you don't know what the security is on, you don't know who's changed permissions, where. So there's a little bit of work around segregation of data within organisations. So we strongly recommend that, you know, before we go in anger on some of this sort of stuff, we kind of take a step back, understand what your data looks like, how we can help you. And we've got some ideas on what we're going to do, but, you know, where our thinking is we're going to run some Copilot, you know, boot camps for our clients. We're going to say, you know what, let's turn this on for a couple of users initially. Let's trial it. Let's play with the data. Let's train them up, become the subject matter experts. Don't just turn it on day one for everyone, because what might happen is a can of worms gets opened up within your data, right? And that's the honest truth. Like, as much as Microsoft want everyone in the world to turn it on day one, I think they are also of the opinion that, you know, it needs to be planned like anything else. So in the Microsoft world, data privacy is super important. They don't use the data to improve the model. It's exclusive, non-sharing. You know, you can fine tune your own models, and it all sits within the Microsoft security stack. So that's good. So that kind of leads us into, you know, where the world is at the moment. You know, we've all been hacked one way or another, personally, through your suppliers, through your, you know, your phone company, you name it. We've all had some form of a breach. And what we're seeing is it's, as Phil said, the problem isn't big business, it's also the small businesses. And, you know, we've got some clients here today that kind of help other clients with cyber incidents. You know, most of the attacks are coming to small businesses. They're the small thefts, but they hurt, right? Like you can imagine a small business losing $10,000. That hurts. And AI is just going to increase the cyber risk, right? Because the tools now, like you used to get this email and you read it and you're like, it's written by someone who's, you know, got no idea about English and they're trying to get my money. But imagine if they can use AI tools to write formal emails, do research, all those sorts of things. And all the things that help us today to make life easier, they can use to make their lives easier. So, you know, before they try to hack you, they'll ask, what do you know about Fuse Technology? Who's the MD of the business? And they can get that information because it's easily searchable now. So AI will only increase the risk of cyber, which is why it's super important that we get it right. So we want to make sure that, you know, you have all the right things in place. And then for the small business owners of the world, you know, as directors now, we have responsibilities. You know, if you're told about cybersecurity breaches or risks in the organization, you actually have to fix it. You have to have a cyber framework. So just like, you know, we all used to have, what happens if, you know, key people leave the organization, what's the plan? Well, now it's, what's the plan around what happens when cyber comes along? Roles and responsibilities within your own organization. Who's going to get on the front foot? Who's going to communicate to the clients? Who's going to be point with, you know, all the suppliers? These are all the things that you need to be aware of. The employee training is super important. You know, I'll be honest, we had a intern start with us. Within a week, he had bought $500 worth of iTunes vouchers and sent them to who he thought was me, right? Because he added himself onto LinkedIn. 5 seconds later, someone on LinkedIn got his details. Next thing you know, they WhatsApp him and say, hey, Andrew, it's Chung here. I wanted to WhatsApp you because I didn't want anyone else in the organization to know. I want to give everyone iTunes gift vouchers. And he's like, oh, cool. I can help you, Chung. And this whole correspondence goes into Woolies, buys the cards, takes the photos, next thing you know. And then something must have happened. And he's like, Chung, did you ask me to do this? And I'm like, do what? And he's like, oh, crap. Before he even did the cyber training, which was day 3 of his internship. Right? 19-year-old, first job, you know, that sort of scenario. Like that's how simple it is. So we just need to make sure that, you know, now we've moved cyber training to the first thing. So yeah, all these things are super important. Proactive. So obviously AI. So there's so much noise. So, you know, we just turned a client on for SOC management and they're getting notifications. They were breached. They hadn't done any notifications. All of a sudden they're getting all these notifications and they're getting all this noise and they're like, what's going on? And we're like, actually false positives, you know, and we're like, you know, that this is like after the AI has done its job. You know, there's a million of these things that are happening every day. People are trying to log in from everywhere. This is why AI is important. Yes, things are getting through, but imagine all the things that didn't get through. And that's the thing that people have got to realize. AI is not the silver bullet, but it reduces a million things to 10 things, and that makes it manageable. So, you know, anticipate, adapt, real-time detection, automated responses, and continuous learning. That's where AI kind of comes in. So for those that don't know, the Australian government have been doing some things around this. They've got this thing called the Essential 8 maturity model. So if you do business with federal government, state government, local government, they're now starting to mandate essential aid as the starting point. So there's basically 4 levels of essential aid. 0 means you have nothing. 1, 2, and 3. 3 is basically if you want to deal with defence or the ATO, you have to have level 3 compliance. Level 2 is where most people are comfortable. Small businesses can get to level 2 relatively easily. And so what it is, it's basically a bunch of controls that you have to do. So what have we done? So we've basically built a stack, and it's all powered off Business Premium. So it's, think of small businesses, right? Like we've got some clients in the room, 20 seats or less, want to do work for government, and you have to do all this compliance work. So what we've done is we've taken away the noise. So like Phil said, Business Premium, it powers it for most of our clients. We turn on all the security bits that Microsoft have. So I liken buying Microsoft to buying a new house. It's great that you have a new house and you've got all the bells and whistles, but someone still has to lock the door. Someone still has to set the PIN code on the alarm. Someone still has to do the things to make sure it's safe, right? And that's what Microsoft is. They give you all the tools, but every house is lived in differently. Every organization needs a different level of security. We then layer on Sentinel, so that's the scene management, so that's all the event logging and management. We do backup because that is actually a requirement on some organizations. We do the DMARC and DKIM, so that's like email brand impersonation. So, how many times have you got an email from someone where the name looks exactly the same, but the domain on the back end? We use a product called Netscope and Threat Locker, so they're application whitelisting products and security products. So think staff member at home on their internet at home. It's a firewall on their laptop that directs all the traffic to the right places, and also allows you to do web filtering. So, in the office previously, you used to surf your internet, and if you tried to go to a bad site, it would pop up saying, oh, it's been blocked. Well, when people were working from home, that stopped. So you had to kind of change the way you did that. And that's where the Netscope product sits. And then on top of that, we have our support model, global support, service management, reporting, IT awareness training. So we use a product called Know4. So when you basically buy this stack, you get essential aid level 2 compliance in a box. We handle all the upcoming compliance. You get a call from insurance, your cyber insurance company saying, fill out this spreadsheet. You just send it to us. We deal with it. When you get a new customer on board, maybe a global supplier saying, oh, do you have ISO 27001? We will handle that, right? So whilst it's not ISO 27001, because you've got to do the compliance bit, if you need to, we can turn that on as well. So that's what that product is. And then for us, we just see that if your business doesn't get on the AI bandwagon now, you're going to be left behind. And it's no different to, I had this conversation. It's been a while since I've been excited by technology, but this is like the shift to the internet and then the shift to mobile, right? This is the next big thing. It's probably bigger because what we're seeing now is we're kind of putting it in to use day in, day out with all of our teams and trying to get them to work out, well, what can we do things more efficiently? How do we do things better? But it's not going to be long before you're going to see some AI tools out there that will just, you haven't even thought about. And, we're happy to have those conversations with our customers to help them think outside the box and go along this journey. But our job is to make sure that it's secure, that you've got the right infrastructure, that it works every day of the week. We're not here to tell you how to do your job better. We just help you enable your job. So that's kind of, I wanted to keep it nice, short and sweet. I think the Microsoft vision is amazing. I think like everyone, we're super excited to see when it's going to come out. So last month, there was a big Microsoft Inspire conference. That's what Phil was talking about. They announced it's going to be $30 per user per month. Now, from the 1st of September, for anyone who doesn't have their Microsoft licensing with us, there is a change in Microsoft licensing price, which basically will hedge Microsoft licenses across to the US dollar. So there is a price increase coming. If you're not aware of it, there's some tricks to kind of lock yourself into a cheaper price for 12 months. that you can come talk to us about. But I have a feeling that they'll announce the Australian pricing shortly thereafter, and then, you know, it's not long. Like realistically, I would say in the next couple of, if for Microsoft to announce it at Inspire means that it's not going to be too far away.
Correct. And it is yeah, okay for me?
Yeah, you take it.
It's kind of a.
Yeah, no, it's a good answer.
So yes, announced at Inspire, the pricing was shared, the $30 US. We announced the availability of ChatGPT-5, which is a core engine to support it in the Australian facility, which is great. Some of the co-pilots are already there, and we're going to get the Microsoft 365 co-pilots. Our challenge. This stuff takes a lot of energy. It burns a lot of juice. We talked about the analogy, you know, the analogy, Dante. It's an email that's about 5 megabytes in size, chews up a light bulb for an hour in terms of its energy consumption. A Copilot generative query to generate a PowerPoint chews up 20 light bulbs for an hour. We've got commitments around sustainability, 2030 commitment, 2050 commitments. Turning this stuff on, we've got to make sure we've got green power. We've got to make sure that we get our offsets right. Otherwise, we're just going to break our commitment to trying to save this planet. And you probably don't want to do that. You say, I just want this technology now. But we're in a really tough line because we can give you this, but we've made commitments around greening the planet, which we're just going to destroy. Yeah, as soon as we can. We have customers already using it. If you're in the top 500 customers around the world, you'll have had some of your staff already using it. Microsoft staff don't get it. We've got a few staff. You guys get it before we get it. Look, I'm still using a Surface Pro 4 because you guys get it when we see orders for Surface. You get it before we get it. As I was saying, you know, we sometimes find our internal systems start to go slow because we shift the juice to you guys to give you customers a better experience than we get. So we can't process the orders in our system because we just grind our environment. Anyway, they're all good excuses, Phil. When? I don't know. I genuinely do not know. And in this place at the moment, they won't let you know until the day. Suddenly it's there. Like they didn't even tell me Bing Chat Enterprise landed on my desktop the other day. I'm halfway through Inspire and I'm having it a Bing Chat. And because I signed in with my Azure Active Directory credentials, suddenly it went to Bing Chat Enterprise. I'm like, oh, wow. You didn't tell us this was coming? Well, no, we just roll it out when we. And then same with Teams Premium. Going, wow, I've got the recap button now and I can set the colors and backgrounds and groups and all sorts of other stuff in Teams Premium. They don't warn us. We've just got to adapt to the change. There's no adapt and change process in our business. It's just there. And truly, I think, have a look at those videos I mentioned to get a sense of what's coming. Maybe even try and find that change agent in your business, the champions of change. You've probably used them before. Dust them off. Give them a new seat. They'll watch the videos. We need you to be enrolled to go and tell the business if you're into the idea of Copilot. There's some really interesting wrinkles in all this too. There's a really interesting, it's partner facing. You could watch it if you wanted to, I think, if you created an account and you could get past our firewalls as being recognised as a partner. There's one about how, when, why Copilot in 365 Copilot. And there's one section in there which is more of a marketing pitch for these guys than it is for you, you know, because we got to sell to our sellers and then they sell to you. And it goes about, and I just want you to all be very clear, this will not work with a third-party IDAP. Yeah, what do you mean it won't work? I've got to think third-party IDAP. And then the lady presenting it, Gloria, goes on and says, it won't work with Okta. It won't work with anything other than Azure Active Directory. Remember that conversation about compliance and guardrails and classification, and that stuff is all linked to that Azure Active Directory, which isn't called Azure Active Directory, by the way. Thank you very much. So Entra, and then Entra's got a whole bunch of other stuff, which is interesting because you love those guys on the slide underneath there, the Netscope guys. We just created an alternate product to that called
We're waiting. We've been waiting.
Secure Services Edge, private and internet, I don't think. So it's, we're just getting so, dare I say, aggressive in the security space at the moment. But that one there really, again, knocked me off the chair. I went, what? We're not going to work with Okta. We're not going to work with Duo. We're not going to work with Ping. It'll only work with AAD. And there's some big and small businesses out there who've got their lives committed to that stuff. Wow. So it's a decision. Do I go Copilot and move to AAD and Entra? Or do I just not turn on Copilot?
The good thing is most of the clients in the SMB space
Or AAD.
are AD. There are big clients, but I think for us right now, it's more of a wrapping their head around how it's going to help your businesses in this room today. I think there is definitely some huge efficiency gains. It will change things. And so what we want to do is, as I said, take you guys on the journey, help where we can, but ultimately start thinking about now where the inefficiencies in your business are. Because we are right now, we just did our yearly planning. Number two goal was automation AI, and how does it help us scale? Because we can't just keep throwing people at the problem.
Mhm.
Australia has a problem now around productivity, low unemployment. How do we get more productivity out of our teams? And I think these sorts of tools are the future,
Mhm.
and we want to invest in it.
As significant as electricity, as significant as a typewriter being replaced with word processing, as significant as the browser.
Yeah.
And those things didn't get legislated it quickly either, because we see plenty in the media about legislation and the dark old world of AI. Sorry, Dave, I can't do that. Those sorts of sentiments out there. And absolutely, it could be a very dangerous world if not correctly applied by us.
So
We're working very diligently, actually, with an active team out of our AI, Lee Higgin, Sarah Carney. They're in Canberra. Sarah now is based in Canberra dealing with government about AI legislation.
The reality is it's going to be a lot faster than all those things. It's the technology is all there. What we need to do is switch it on the back end, and it's instantly there, and everyone's step forward.
Yep.
So it's not going to take years.
It's not going to be like the railway. It's not going to be like electricity.
It's not like the internet.
It's not even like the internet where we had to get browsers out and then they
also built pipes and etc.
pipes
I
there.
think in the US, the corporation, they create a conglomeration, come up with policies, and they kind of agreed that they're going to be follow those process and policies.
Mhm.
Microsoft, Apple, Google, and some of them. I don't see any kind of, this kind of initiatives in Australia. There's
Definitely between us and the government. That's why Sarah's based there in Canberra now, moved her to Canberra to work with them on helping do AI legislation. Obviously, it's going to have a Microsoft angle on it. But my daughter works for Google, and I know, and she works in government policy, and she's already got the Google person moving to Canberra, then with a Google perspective on that as well. So at least we, as responsible IT companies, are trying to work with government. I have issues with the E8. The E8 to me is still predicated on thinking about Windows 8.1 machines backing up desktops. It's not a completely cloud motivated model. So I really struggle with it. And I worry that the thinking of some, and again, not recorded, that some in politics, you only have to watch Utopia, right, to get a sense of what goes on there. And the wheels don't turn quick, and they're predicated on 20-year-old concepts. Whereas, yeah, I'm 62. I try and think like a 17, 18-year-old in everything I do, but that's just, I'm weird. And I love being weird for that.
Yeah, so we talk about Essential 8, but Essential 8 is basically based on a Windows PC. It doesn't cover Macs, Chromebooks, mobile devices, any of that stuff.
Say BYO.
But it still is one of the.
It's a
best
start,
things.
right? It's a start.
Really is, 80% of the problems.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sam said that, if you follow essential aid in other countries.
Yep.
That will solve a lot of problems. But, again, the privacy law in Australia is very draconian. It's like they're based on photocopiers.
Now,
That technology,
frustrates our public sector team who goes into a government deal and they say, if you don't comply with EA, well, we'll try to present Microsoft 365 to you. And it does a lot of stuff, but where's your backup? We don't back it up. It's called retention. Well, guess why we changed retention to backup? So we could win EA. It's the same thing. We just renamed it. Oh, that's good. You got backup now. Okay.
Any questions from the room?
The biggest challenge is around education and adoption. So when you look at for all small and medium enterprise and all the technologies there, but how do we get people engaged and get to the point of productivity improvement? A lot of businesses are strapped with time. That rollout and the adoption is a critical thing.
Agreed. And I think I mentioned it, and if I didn't, I apologise, but I totally agree. Adoption and change management is a key component, and so you can look towards. Oh, that should be right, the sister. Yeah, adoption and change management is something we've always had to change in introducing teams or she's back. She's persistent, isn't she?
join the meeting.
She runs Starlight. Give me a break. Well, she works at Starlight as their marketing person. She's a lovely person that she does that, but she's very persistent young lady. Adoption and change management. Same things we've had to do in the past. Same again here. You're quite right. I'm sure you've got disciplines in your business at Fuse. You've probably got them in your process. Classic things like finding champions of change, immersing them in the technology, releasing them out to the market to change the thinking of others. In some respects, it goes to a point you made. They're probably already doing ChatGPT, right? So they're going to come to the office and say, how do I do this at work, boss? Well, don't use that for work as you've done as a policy because of your experiences. So how do you set that up? Do you firewall out ChatGPT?
I
don't know.
Netscope has something, but it's not bulletproof.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to find out what can be done on that aspect.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you say, oh, you redirect it to Bing Chat Enterprise, which you've already got for free. They type in ChatGPT and it keeps coming up with Bing Chat Enterprise, which makes sure that it stays within inside the guardrails. Anything they publish just stays within your guardrails by doing that. So you do actually get that for nothing. That's another approach.
But it's no different to the early days of the internet. Like it's the Wild West at the moment. And I think it's as partners and Microsoft, our job is to help our customers navigate the noise and get the right guardrails in place and make sure that, your information's safe and your staff are using it the right way.
You mentioned ChatGPT 5.
GPT-5,
GPT-5.
Yes.
which is the large language model.
Yeah. So is that being released? Because I already had GPT-4, but Rise 5 was.
Yeah. So that's what we.
5 is the Microsoft one.
It's our version.
Ah,
So it's based off that large language model.
What happens when you write a big check to someone? They go, here's a special one for you.
Special new version. But you'll also find other large language models there. We've just done the deal with Meta Llama 2.
Which is
Another.
open source.
Yes. And they all have their different nuances. I mean, even ChatGPT has like 20 different versions within it. It's Da Vinci and I won't go through the full list, but there's a lot of different ones which take different numbers of tokens and have different answers. And so what some people will do is they'll do it against all of them. Boy, look at the electricity just chewed up, and then run it through a post-processing filter to say that's the better answer that we like. So we use that. So that's it.
This is your alignment. Is that dealing with your?
That's doing guardrailing, alignment, jailbreaking, and
Does it have its liver ripped out every morning?
sorry.
Does it have its liver ripped out every morning?
Yeah, I missed it again.
Does it have its liver ripped out every morning?
No, you're thinking about the movie now. No, the Greek mythology. No, is that where the original? That's bad of me not to know the Prometheus has his liver ripped out every morning.
He gave fire to him.
Yes, okay, right. I didn't know that. No, I was thinking about the movie, which was
Came to stone.
Okay.
And his liver ripped out.
Well, I'm gonna have to look that up because I better study my Greek because I'm off to Greece in just 3 weeks. My grandson's christening on a little remote island, which is where his family's kind of from.
So that's Prometheus is stopping the fire getting.
Yeah, he went up to the hill to get the fire.
I know Icarus
Was it the start of the?
melted with the wings coming off, right?
Was it?
Apollo was the one with the
I haven't watched
light
it.
little wings.
I haven't watched it yet.
Oh, no, Apollo's the Roman equivalent.
Roman one, but he was.
We have more informal chat downstairs. We've got a bar running, so downstairs bar room. And we've got a little bit of food, Neville's open bar. Feel free to have a drop down. But we'll reach out to everyone after this, and as we get more and more solid information, we'll share it with you. We, like everyone else, want to get our hands on it. There may be some sources that I have that already have it, and yeah, we'll have a play with it and let you guys know very quickly. But I think, yeah, thank you very much for hosting today.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. I think, yeah, there's a lot of information for people to digest.
Yeah, do have a look at those demos that we didn't have time to go into today. They're very, very easily accessible, the demos. They're only 3 minutes long each one, but it does give you a glimpse of what's possible with each tool. Okay. Thanks again. I look forward to sharing a drink with you downstairs. And the Nibbleys are very good down there too.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody online. Appreciate you joining. Bye for now. Signing off.